This is the biggest prehistoric monument in Europe. Something extraordinary must have happened here for a structure of this size to be built by people living in small, isolated communities. This was one of the great mysteries of the ancient world. Now, through our understanding of the persuasive power of art, we may have found an answer. It all began with the chance discovery of a burial site near Stonehenge. Archaeologists expected to find a Roman burial ground, common in this part of the world. What none of them knew at the time was that they had stumbled into one of the most momentous archaeological discoveries ever made in Britain.
I knew straight away that the grave wasn't Roman because it had a kind of pottery in it that dates to the beginning of the Bronze Age, so it was almost 2,000 years older than the Roman graves, so we knew he had something very different.
Andrew Fitzpatrick and his team had uncovered the skeleton of a man dating back nearly 4,500 years, and next to it, dozens of objects. It was the sheer scale of the find that suggested this was no ordinary grave and no ordinary man.
It's normal in a burial of this age to find just one or two objects, and we would have called a grave maybe with 10 things in it rich, but as the numbers mounted and mounted, it was clear that this grave was of exceptional importance, and as the numbers got to almost 100, we realised it was the richest grave not just in Britain, but in continental Europe as well.
An examination of the objects revealed further surprises. There were a number of fine objects designed for personal display, like a stone belt buckle, a wrist guard used by an archer, and some tiny copper knives. But in amongst all of these, there was something very special. 2 identical pieces of gold. As they examined these more closely, they realized they were in fact ornaments, probably hair clasps, and both beautifully crafted. They may not look very much now, tiny, with just a very simple pattern round the edge, but at the time when these were created and worn, that's nearly 4,500 years ago, these were probably the greatest treasures that anyone possessed in the British Isles. For the first time, gold had been melted and shaped and then transformed into an ornament. This was a new kind of art, and the first of its kind in Britain. The big question then was, whose was it? Archaeologists needed to examine the skeleton in more detail, and what they discovered was that this man was not from the Stonehenge area. He'd come from Central Europe. He was a foreigner who'd made an epic journey to get to Britain.
It's a journey without compare at this time. And to cross the sea, he would only have had a dugout canoe or a coracle. It's a long and very dangerous journey.
How was it that a stranger from hundreds of miles away had come to be buried with all the trappings of a great and revered leader?
People would have known him as an exotic and an important person. He had something that nobody else had, and he had the skills to transform raw metal into these finished objects. He had knowledge and he had power.
It was the gold, so exquisite and rare, that had created the image of a leader. These would have been like the crown jewels, strictly reserved for a leader of great importance. Art fit for a king. Just imagine how he would once have appeared to his subjects. Our king would have looked magnificent. Dressed in a splendid leather tunic, his body and face lit up by shiny metals never before seen. The people who lived around Stonehenge would have worn nothing but simple animal skins. This man's appearance alone must have mesmerized them. What this individual had discovered was something that we today take for granted. Art as personal adornment enhances your status. It lifts you above your peers. And our king was the first leader in Britain to exploit what would become a universal human trait. And it's something that leaders from the time of Stonehenge to the present day have exploited. The adornments of office enhance your power. This power of art may now finally explain how such a colossal monument came to be built. It must have taken a leader of great power to organize the hundreds of people needed for such an undertaking. Our foreigner arrived with his gold around the time that Stonehenge was built. And it's likely that it was he who organized its construction. What's more, he may well have intended Stonehenge as the ultimate symbol of his power. If our king did indeed build this, the most impressive prehistoric temple in Europe, then adornment had played a crucial role in his achievement. Art had become a political tool. It was the dawn of a new era.